I'd like to give you a little bit of information about our chapter specifically. At present, we have 365 chapter members. About 75% of them hold the PMP certification. So if you're not certified now and you're not quite pursuing your certification, this is still a great group to get involved with to learn more about the project management profession and to network and find out about job opportunities and that kind of thing. So I would very much recommend that you be a part of our chapter. We have members from over 200 local employers, so there is a big group of project managers in the Chattanooga area. And what you have available to you as a chapter member is the opportunity to attend monthly member meetings to earn professional development units, which are credits towards recertification. And once you're certified, you need 60 credits within 3 years to maintain that certification. And part of the primary role of our chapter is to be sure that you can get those credits towards your recertification. We also offer bi-monthly networking events, which are very fun, and we also provide some knowledge along with just the opportunity to network. We provide an annual professional development day that allows you to get up to 8 professional development units and build your skills as a project manager. We also offer opportunities to volunteer and to either mentor others or to be mentored by more experienced project managers. And one of the big things is being a member of our chapter provides you with discounts on the PMP exam prep courses that are offered at UTC. If you're considering membership, we'd like to point out our website, which is below here at ChattanoogaPMI.org. And there's a bunch of great information there for you, so please check that out. And we also have some board of director positions that are available now. You may think, hey, wait a minute, I'm just launching into this. But being a member of the board is a great opportunity to really understand project management in our region. It's a great way to network. It's a wonderful resume builder, and for your volunteer activity on the board, you can also earn professional development units. So let me put that plug in for us. Now, we're here today to talk about the PMP application process. And the first website you see there is where you can really find out about the application and find the application itself, which is all online. The application is broken into these 4 sections. Contact information, which is essentially your name and your address and that kind of information. Your attained education, which is whether or not you have a bachelor's degree, a master's, or more advanced degree. And then the meat of the application is the project management experiences. And for the application, you can look back 8 years of experience to document where you have contributed in project management. And then the final section is your project management education, which is the PMP exam preparation courses. And we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. And the meat of what we're going to talk about today is going to be documenting the project management experiences because they're so important to the application process. For your information, the timeline is that once you log in to the application and begin it, you have 90 days from that date to complete your application. Once it's complete and you've submitted it, it generally takes 5 days for PMI, the Project Management Institute, to review your application. And you can hear back within those 5 days. However, between 7 and 10% of all applications are rather randomly audited. And so if you get a request to audit your application, you will have 90 days from the time you are informed about the audit to respond. Once your application has been accepted, you will be eligible to take the project management professional exam. That eligibility lasts for 1 year, and during that 1 year, you can take the exam up to 3 times. And again, I would just point out, we do have the chat box that's active, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in, and we'll respond as we're getting them. Now, one of the first hurdles or the first ways to view your application is based on your combination of experience and education. And PMI breaks it into Category A, those who do not possess at least a bachelor's degree, and Category B. So looking first at Category A, if you have a high school diploma, an associate's degree, or something equivalent, less than a bachelor's degree, then you'll need to have a combination of 5 years of non-overlapping project management experience. And that's looking back for the past 8 years. And that would need to be a total documented 7,500 hours leading and directing projects. In addition to this, you'll need to get those 35 hours of project management education. If you're category B, then you have at least a bachelor's degree. The field does not necessarily matter as long as it is a 4-year bachelor's degree. And your experience will need to be a minimum of 3 years of non-overlapping project management experience in the last 8 years for a total of 4,500 hours that you can document through the application process of leading and directing projects. There's also the same requirement of the 35 hours of project management education. And so in the box below, we give you some detail about that education. It has to be consistent with the topics that are included within the PMP exam content outline. It's demonstrated through successful completion of courses, like the courses that are offered through UTC, workshops and or training sessions that include some form of assessment of what you've learned, or a certificate of completion. And it needs to be obtained in advance of submitting your application, but it could have been accrued at any point in the past, just as long as you can document that 35 hours of project management education.
So to interject, some examples of classes you can take are if you took a technical course in MS Project, or if you took a leadership course like 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, any sort of leadership or any sort of project management or anything that has to do. And that link, the PMP exam content outline, is a link to the actual content. And it gives you on page 11 and 12 all the areas and topics that they're looking for you to have experience or knowledge in. So those are ideas of the types of training or courses or workshops that would count toward your education hours. But definitely any PMP prep course would count toward those hours. But you'd have to have completed that before you put that on your application.
Thank you, Kelly. Now, some basic qualifications for PMP candidates that you'll want to know before you go through the application process is that PMI requires that qualified project management professional candidates perform their duties under general supervision and are responsible for all aspects of the project for the life of the project. So it really is project management. You need to document that you have led and directed cross-functional teams to deliver projects within the constraints of schedule, budget, and resources. And you need to demonstrate sufficient knowledge and experience to appropriately apply methodology to projects that have reasonably well-defined project requirements and deliverables. So maybe one of your first questions is, really, what is a project? And the way the Project Management Institute views projects is within what they call 5 domains. And these domains are process areas. And those 5 process areas are here: initiating, planning, monitoring and controlling, executing, and closing a project. And you need to be thinking in your documentation about how you organize your activities within a project in these 5 domains. And we'll give you some more examples of those in just a moment. So PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So there are all kinds of projects that people are involved in all the time. PMI prefers that it be something that is more work-based than personally based. So for example, the project of leading a whole wedding planning is not one that PMI generally looks at as a defined project. However, if you do something for a community service, your church, or a volunteer organization that you work for, that is a clearly defined initiative that you led and worked through from beginning to end, if you document that appropriately enough, that can be considered a project. So you really have to reach through your experience. Again, you can go back 8 years and really consider what you can document as work through a project. PMI also says project description should consist of the following: a brief, 1-sentence project objective including your project role. And we recommend that you use some of the language around project management that you will find within the training. And were you the project manager? Were you the project sponsor? Some of those roles and using some of that language. And then project deliverables should be summarized by process areas. So those 5 domains of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. And it's really helpful to use abbreviations, like you start your little sentence about what you did on a project with IN for initiating, and put a colon, and then put your statement about the deliverable that you were responsible for in that area. And then include a brief 1-sentence project outcome. And here embedded into the presentation, which you'll receive, is an example PMP app experience. It's just one screenshot, but it shows how you can very briefly capture a project and your role in it. And we would direct you to look at that example as well as numerous others. There's a lot that you can search for out on the web on how to complete your application with lots of examples, and it may help your thinking and framing how you can present your own experience. And finally, you need to provide descriptions with less detail about the project and more focus on what your role in that project. Now, some tips for you in completing this experience section is to use the Project Management Institute's terminology. And here we've given you some good examples of the right language to use and some bad examples to use. So under initiate, that IN, you want to put that you developed the project charter. And that's better language, more in line with the PMI domains and the way of thinking in project management than created a project kickoff document. They're the same thing. It's called project charter. You use that language. Under planning, you developed the WBS, which is the work breakdown structure. And that's better than saying you wrote the product breakdown structure, which isn't really necessarily PMI language. So here are just a few examples to consider. Also, document reasonable hours of experience in each one of these 5 domains. So for example, closing out a project, if you're looking at 100% of the activity in a project, is only 5 to 7% of the project's activities. It might be questioned if you put that was where 100% of your time lay, was in closing project. For most projects, the majority of time, 50% or more, is going to be spent in execution. So as you're documenting your hours, both the number of hours and percentage of total time, you want it to be more congruent with that 50% of the time in executing activities. Also, you want to document experience in all domains or process areas across all your projects. You don't have to necessarily have led or been involved in all domains in each project. So you may have been solely responsible for planning and executing in one project, and then solely responsible for monitoring and controlling and then closing in another project, which is fine. Just be sure that the examples you give show experience in all 5 domains. And then specifically explain what you did and were responsible for to demonstrate these actions. Not really what the project team did, but what you were integral in doing. One of the big elements of documenting your experience is really noting the hours spent. And so we've provided embedded within this presentation here under the bottom Springbok training. It's a template, and we're going to look at that a minute to show you how you can use it to document your actual hours. First, I'd like to say that be sure to capture time correctly for overlapping projects. Your average hours worked per week should be explainable. So it's fine if you generally do work 50 hours a week, but that has to be pretty congruent across all of your experience areas. It becomes a little more questionable when you have a lot of 60 or 80-hour weeks, if that's what it would ultimately break down to. So just watch your math. And then qualifying project hours can go back 8 years. So again, that's the time frame you want to consider from the application date. And I'm going to click out of this a minute and go to that spreadsheet so you can see how you can use this tool to document your hours. So this is an Excel Excel workbook that has 3 tabs. One is the instructions on how to use it. You'll see here in the instructions this breakdown of approximate weight for each one of the domains in project management. And then the next tab are high-level project hours, which gives you an opportunity to look at each one of your projects, just give a phrase about that project, a phrase about your role in it, the start and finish, your estimated duration, and then it'll calculate the total amount of hours. So for example, if you are in category B, where you have a bachelor's degree, and you need to document 4,500 hours of project management experience, this will show you how you have calculated based on your projects and where you might need to add some more hours or if you have met that mark.
So basically what you would be entering is anything in the white sections, and all of the colored sections are calculated. So it gives you the opportunity not to have to worry about your calculating how many hours you spent on one project or how many hours you spent in a day on another project. If you put the percentage of time that you worked on a project over that course of the start and finish, it will calculate how many hours you spent for a year-long or a 6-month-long project. And in the same respect, when you talk about initiation, if you spent 10% of that time in initiation, then it will automatically calculate that purple section with initiation as well as planning, executing, and the other 2 domains. So this tool helps you with your math. It helps make sure that you're not going over 100% of your time for the various time periods, especially when projects overlap and one project starts and another project ends. If you're pretty clear on how much of your day you spent for each project and you put that percentage in, it will do the math for you. And then you won't have problems explaining your hours if you get audited. So this tool is very useful for that.
Also in this workbook is the final tab, which is the detailed breakout. And this is where you can go across the top and input your actual projects with those calculated percent of time, and in each one of these areas of the domains. So one of the great things about this detailed breakout is it kind of gives you the language that you want to be using in your application. And so we would recommend that you hew pretty closely to this.
Okay, so there's a question on the chat, which Carrie Sapp, we will answer your questions at the end, but the second question you asked, if multiple projects that are similar, can the domain descriptions and the time applied be the same for each project? So when you're talking about what you did on a project, absolutely, the descriptions for what you did can be the same. And if you have similar projects, as long as if you can explain that they're unique and each outcome is unique and each deliverable is unique, because that's the definition of a project, is that it has a different result, a unique result. If you can explain that, then absolutely you can. And there are yearly projects that we do that are very similar, but as long as you can explain like the 2018, upgrade of something, and then the 2019 upgrade of something, as long as you can delineate between what the difference between those projects are, that's absolutely a fair project to use for your application. I hope that answered your question.
And again, we do have that chat box open, so feel free to express any questions.
Right.
All right, so that's, again, a really good tool for you to use. We would recommend that you start there before you really start writing things into the actual application itself on the PMI website.
Right, because there is a 500 character limit for each description that you are allowed. So we do mean that you need to be very careful about your wording and not putting in too much information about the project in particular, but as it relates to what you did in those words that they used on that detailed breakout.
Now, I had mentioned that somewhere between 7 to 10% of all applications are audited. It is a fairly random process for those audits, and we recommend that you write your application as if it will be audited, and you will need to provide documentation that supports all of your claims. But we would like to give you a few tips to hopefully avoid that audit, and if you are audited, that will allow you to pass the audit. So first, don't exaggerate with overlapping months of experience. It becomes confusing to the reviewers of the application, and that could increase your probability of being audited. So be very clear, be very concise. Be specific about what your work responsibilities were. I would turn your attention again to the Springbok spreadsheet that broke down the different work responsibilities within each domain. There's good language there that you can use. Also, do your math properly. If you use that second tab, that should allow you to do that because you're just putting in percentages and it will automatically calculate and prevent you from double counting, showing too many hours, and you can be sure that your math is accurate. Keep copies of your credentials. So, for example, have your transcript available if you are audited to prove that you have that bachelor's degree, or if you have certification in other things like you've received training in MS project or something like that, be sure that you have that available. Make it simple for the auditors to verify your experience. A good way to do this is talk with supervisors of your project experience before submitting your application, because for each project, you'll need to say, who is the supervisor over this project? And then another good piece of advice is to have a project management professional, a certified person, review your application.
Because they've gotten an accepted application, so they can give you some good tips.
Yeah, if there's an application has been accepted, then they probably have a good idea. And again, you're welcome to call our chapter, email us, and we'll give you some information at the end of the presentation. If you just kind of need to connect with somebody and follow up, we're available. So let us give you some next steps towards certification. First, you want to submit your application and then receive approval. We'd also recommend that you join PMI. That is the national organization of which we are a local chapter. The cost is $139 for the first year, and then after that's $129. Very good deal for professional chapters, and their website and their resources are simply phenomenal. They've got templates for everything. They'll answer any question. They are advancing the PMP profession dramatically, and it's worth every dollar that you spend towards it. Also, we would say when you are joining PMI, please don't forget to add the Chattanooga chapter to your cart. We're a deal. It's only $35 to join our chapter, and you have access to all of our information that we have on our website, as well as all of those great opportunities to earn PDUs and to network with other people. In addition, being a PMI member, you'll receive a $150 discount off the price of your PMP exam. So we've got down here, members only pay $405 for their exam. Non-members pay $555. So right there, you've paid for your membership. We also recommend that you schedule an exam time with the local Pearson Testing Center. UTC happens to be one of those centers. There's also one out off Shallowford Road, I believe. From the PMI website, you can look up your local Pearson Testing Center. And then you pass the exam and you earn your PMP credential. Just like that. It's simple. So I'd just like to put in a plug for UTC because they are offering that 35 hours of project management education that you must have in order to get your PMP certification. The next class will be October 14th through the 18th. They offer what's called a boot camp, which is a full immersion, full week in everything project management. It is run from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on UTC campus. You'll see the cost here. It is great to register before September 30th because it is less expensive to do so, and it includes all your textbooks and all your materials. If you become a PMI Chattanooga chapter member, you'll receive a 15% discount off the cost of that class. So another plug. And you can register at the site here. And if you have any questions, you can contact Ginger, who kicked off this meeting. Her email and her phone number are below. And so now that is the totality of what we have to tell you about the application process, but we are open to answer any questions. So let's open up that chat box again, and please feel free to send any information.
So we do have one question that said, I completed my project management MGT 4550 at UTC as part of my bachelor's degree, but all of the time in that class, 40 hours, apply to the education requirement. I can't say for sure, but it does appear that that does qualify, but I am not PMI, so I can't say for definite. As long as you can show that you have spent 35 hours in class taking that, with your transcript, I would believe that would count, but I can't, I think it would be the best to be to verify with PMI on that one.
And PMI does a great job of answering any questions. So feel free, just look them up on the web, send them a message, give them a call, and they will answer that question for you.
Okay, we have another question that says, can you explain what the audit process would consist of? So basically, I've not been audited, but I know people who have been audited, and you submit your application, and almost within 5 minutes, you'll get if you're one of the random audits, you'll get an email that says you've been audited. Then they send you an email with an instruction list of everything you need to provide. And basically it's you need to submit through mail copies of your bachelor's degree or your diplomas that just justify everything that you've written. And if you have any, for every project that you have listed and the supervisor's name, they want that supervisor, you have to send them an email or send them a envelope with a form that they have to fill out and seal themselves. And there's some way they seal it so that they know that you've not tampered with it. And that person has to mail that to PMI. So it is a lengthy process if you don't have your materials or your paperwork prepared and you have to go find that certificate for that class you took 8 years ago or whatever. So it's very important that you are able to document and have your supervisor or manager corroborate anything that you've put on your application. So it's just basically, and it has to go through mail, and I'm not sure you'll get copies of those back. So I don't think they send it back to you. Did that explain it? Or, okay, great.
And I know it sounds really daunting, but remember, there are 830,000 project managers, certified project managers in the United States, and we have 365 members, and we don't have, there's probably a total of more than 600 certified project managers in the Chattanooga area. So you can do it too. It is not something that you cannot overcome.
All right, there's another question that says, is there a way to include my UTC transcript with my application? No, there is no, what do you call those, attachments associated with your application. You would just put down the class and how many hours you got for it. And then if they want to question it, then you would have to prove that. And I believe your transcript would be that. But again, they give you very detailed instructions on what you need and what's acceptable. So I did have a chance to look at someone's email from what they asked for. And so they're very clear about what you need to document or corroborate any of your education and your project management experience.
Do we have any other questions? Well, thank you again to everyone who joined us today. And please note that Ginger's contact information is available to you if you want to follow up at all with UTC. And we have our info at ChattanoogaPMI.org contact information there. If you have any questions about membership, the project management profession, our next networking event, whatever you'd like to find out, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you again for your participation and good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Back to Ginger.
Thank you. We appreciate your time in presenting the webinar for us today. And thank everyone for your time and participating in the webinar. We look forward to hearing from you, and reach out to us if you need any assistance with your application or with registration. And we're here to be a resource for you. Thank you so much for participating.